Explaining yourself feels reasonable. It feels mature. It feels like clarity. But psychologically, excessive explanation often does the opposite of what people think it does. People explain themselves when they feel misunderstood, when they feel judged, or when they feel pressure to justify their decisions. And that pressure rarely comes from curiosity. It comes from control. Psychologists have long observed that power dynamics emerge not from authority alone, but from who feels the need to clarify. The person explaining is responding. The person demanding explanation is leading. This is subtle, but important. When you explain yourself, you reveal your internal reasoning, your values, your fears, your priorities. You show where your boundaries are flexible. This isn't inherently bad. In healthy relationships, explanation builds understanding. But in unhealthy dynamics, explanation becomes leverage. People who rely on control often ask questions they already know the answer to. They don't want information. They want reassurance. They want confirmation that they still matter, that they still have access, that their opinion still affects you. When you rush to explain, you confirm that it does. This is why explanations rarely end the pressure. You explain once, then again, then in more detail. Each explanation invites another question. Not because the situation is unclear, but because the power dynamic hasn't shifted. Psychologically, explanation signals emotional investment. It says, "This matters enough for me to defend." And defense invites challenge. The more you explain, the more the other person feels entitled to evaluate your reasoning. They begin to correct you, reframe your words, question your intent. You may notice this in arguments that never resolve. No matter how clearly you explain, it's never enough. That's because clarity isn't the issue. Control is. Healthy people accept explanations once they're given. They may disagree, but they don't demand repeated justification. They don't interrogate your emotions. They don't require you to prove your perspective. Unhealthy dynamics feel different. Your calm explanation is met with skepticism. Your honesty is met with suspicion. Your boundaries are met with resistance. This is when explanation becomes Each time you explain, you move the boundaries slightly backward. You teach the other person that pressure works. Psychologists refer to this as reinforcement through compliance. When someone applies pressure and you respond with more explanation, the pressure is rewarded. So it continues. This is why emotionally regulated people explain less, not more. They don't confuse silence with avoidance. They don't confuse brevity with hostility. They understand that not every question deserves an answer. Sometimes clarity comes from consistency, not justification. Instead of explaining intentions, they demonstrate behavior. Instead of defending choices, they stand by them. This doesn't make them cold. It makes them grounded. They aren't trying to be understood by everyone. They're trying to be aligned with themselves. When you stop over-explaining, something shifts. The other person either adapts or becomes uncomfortable. They may accuse you of changing, of being distant, of not communicating. What they're reacting to isn't a lack of information. It's a lack of access. Because explanation gave them insight into your inner world. And now that access is gone. This is often when the tone changes. They push harder. They escalate emotionally. They attempt to provoke a response. Not to resolve the issue, but to restore the old dynamic. If you remain calm here, the pattern becomes visible. People who respect you will slow down. They'll ask clearer questions. They'll accept shorter answers. They'll adjust. People who relied on leverage will reveal themselves. They'll frame your restraint as a problem. They'll interpret boundaries as rejection. They'll personalize your neutrality. This isn't communication failure. It's boundary exposure. Explaining yourself is not wrong. But explaining yourself out of pressure is costly. You don't owe access to everyone who asks. You don't owe justification for choices you've already made. And you don't need to convince someone who benefits from misunderstanding you. Calm clarity speaks louder than detailed defense. And restraint protects more than explanation ever could.